She posted on Twitter, "I cheated on my fiancé, and I'm not ashamed." I replied, "Tag him next time." Then canceled every. I remember the exact moment it happened. It was a Thursday night, just past midnight. I was finishing a client report, half drained from coffee and code, when a notification popped up on my screen. It wasn't from a work email or Slack. It was from Twitter. The headline read, "Local grad student goes viral after confession about infidelity and self-liberation." At first, I didn't think much of it. The internet loved drama, and I'd seen 100 of these before. But then I saw the profile photo. The same freckled face, auburn hair tucked behind one ear, the small gold hoop she never took off, Julianne. My fiancé. I stared at her post, waiting for my brain to catch up. She'd written, "I cheated on my fiancé, and I'm not ashamed." Growth sometimes looks like betrayal to those who can't evolve. I blinked several times, hoping I was hallucinating. She had tagged no one, but the replies knew exactly who she was. People congratulated her for being brave enough to break free from patriarchal relationships. Others were calling me an abuser without even knowing my name. Within hours, it had over 50,000 likes. For a long moment, I just sat there in silence, cursor blinking on my half-finished report. My chest felt tight, not from anger yet, but from disbelief so sharp it almost felt clean. I clicked her name, scrolled through her timeline. Every post before that was about feminism, empowerment, and the value of education. Posts I'd quietly encouraged because I thought she needed her own voice. Then came the comments. Some of her friends chimed in, cryptic replies like, "Finally," and "You deserve happiness." Others joked about TA energy. And that's when I noticed one particular username replying too often, ONWTA. I clicked it. His profile picture showed him in a campus office, a teaching assistant badge on his lanyard. The pieces began to align in real time, like glass cracking from the center outward. Owen, the same teaching assistant she once mentioned as a friend who gives her notes. My hand hovered over the mouse. I didn't want to go further, but curiosity has a cruel appetite. I opened her Instagram next, and everything looked perfectly normal. Photos of us, smiling at a friend's wedding, vacation shots in New Orleans, her holding my hand at a pumpkin patch. The same person who'd posted that confession a few hours ago. I switched tabs again and found something worse. Screenshots of her tweet being shared on Reddit, TikTok compilations forming around it. Her face everywhere. Strangers dissecting our lives like a public exhibit. That was the moment something in me switched off. Not rage. Not sorrow. Just precision. A cold, mechanical kind of clarity I didn't know I was capable of. I opened another tab, the tuition portal. For the past 2 years, I'd been covering every expense for her graduate program. Tuition, textbooks, housing subsidies. Every payment was through my name. I had automated transfers set up for the next semester. I didn't cancel them yet. I just looked, watched the numbers, the due dates, the record of how much I had already paid. $32,000 across 4 semesters. The amount looked obscene now, as if I'd financed my own public humiliation. Still, I didn't move a muscle. Not yet. I closed the tab and opened PayPal instead, scanning through transactions. There were small ones I didn't recognize. Airbnb charges under her maiden name, small trips labeled study weekend. One of the addresses caught my eye. It was in a quiet neighborhood near campus, the kind of place couples rented for privacy. She had booked it multiple times. My stomach felt weightless, as if my body had forgotten gravity. Every instinct screamed to confront her, but something deeper told me to wait, to understand everything before acting. Julianne was asleep in the bedroom then, curled up under the blanket I'd bought her last Christmas. I walked to the door, paused, and looked at her silhouette in the dim light. She looked peaceful, almost innocent. I wondered if she had any idea how much of herself she'd already exposed to the world. Instead of waking her, I returned to my desk. I screenshotted the tweet, the replies, the Airbnb records. Everything went into a folder labeled Archive. I didn't know what I'd do with it yet, but I knew this wasn't the kind of betrayal you fix with a talk. I barely slept that night. At dawn, while she brewed her usual coffee, I stared at her phone lying face down on the counter. She smiled at me the same way she always did, told me she had an early seminar, kissed my cheek, and left. The same woman who told the internet she'd cheated on me. When the door closed, I sat down again at my computer. The tweet was still up, more viral than before. Hundreds of new comments. Some men defending me, others mocking me for being the clueless guy. Even my work email had begun receiving links from coworkers who thought they were warning me gently. I checked her PayPal again. A new transaction had just gone through. $87 for a rideshare near the same address as the Airbnb. She wasn't at class. She was going back to him. Something in me steadied then. I wasn't going to scream, or beg, or ask why. I was going to dismantle her world piece by piece, starting with the foundation I had built for her. That evening, I called my bank and asked about reversing automatic tuition payments. The clerk said I'd need to log into the sponsor portal and revoke authorization. I told her I'd handle it myself. Before doing anything else, I checked Twitter one last time. Julianne was still tweeting, now defending her post. She claimed the relationship had been emotionally controlling and that she needed to reclaim her autonomy. I wasn't mentioned by name, but the replies knew. Someone had already tagged my LinkedIn profile under one of her posts. For the first time that day, I smiled. A small, exhausted smile, but real. The internet would eventually know who I was anyway. Better to let her dig her own hole first. I spent the rest of the night backing up files, taking screenshots, saving messages. I didn't text her, didn't warn her. She was probably laughing with him, thinking she'd pulled off some kind of noble rebellion. When she finally came home past midnight, she hummed softly while changing, pretending nothing had changed. I watched from the couch as she placed her phone on the table and disappeared into the shower. The faint sound of running water echoed through the apartment. I picked up her phone, glanced at the lock screen, and entered the passcode I'd long known. There it was, Owen's messages, saved under Research Partner. Photos, dates, even voice memos. She had chronicled her betrayal like it was a diary. I locked the phone, placed it back exactly where it was, and went back to my computer. The only sound left was the faint hum of the fan. Before closing the browser, I looked once more at that tweet. The same words glared back, glowing blue against the screen. I cheated on my fiancé, and I'm not ashamed. Underneath, I started typing. Slowly, carefully. Just 3 words, but enough to cut through the noise. Tag him next time. I didn't post it yet. Not that night. But it was ready, waiting like a loaded gun. I turned off the monitor, sat back, and realized this was no longer about heartbreak. It was about control, and I finally had mine back. The morning after I drafted that reply, I watched Julianne leave again in a crisp beige coat, carrying her laptop bag and travel mug like every other weekday. She said she had class, but I already knew where she was going. There was a particular rhythm to deceit, predictable once you stopped being blinded by love. I waited 10 minutes after the door closed, then opened my laptop. The first thing I did was open iCloud. I'd set it up months ago when she kept losing her devices, using the shared recovery email we'd agreed on. Now it's synced automatically. One login, one click, and her entire digital life unfolded in front of me. Photos, notes, voice memos, conversations that painted me as the dull, dependable one. Screenshots of my texts captioned with laughing emojis sent to her group chat. And then there was Owen, thread after thread filled with study sessions, memes, and compliments that escalated into declarations. They had been meeting for almost a year. Sometimes in my car, judging by the interior visible in one selfie. I wasn't angry yet. I was cataloging, observing. The more I learned, the less emotion remained. Each discovery replaced something inside me, a heart for data, patience for strategy. I backed up every file, organized them by date, zipped them into a single folder, and encrypted it with a passcode only I'd remember. Then I checked the bursar's office portal again. Her tuition for the upcoming semester hadn't yet been paid. That would change by noon. But before that, I needed one last piece of confirmation. I called the university's administrative office, pretending to be her financial sponsor needing to confirm upcoming payments. A polite woman on the line verified my identity and said, yes, I was listed as the sole financial guarantor for all tuition and associated costs. If I withdrew authorization, her enrollment would automatically pause until payment was reestablished. That was all I needed. Around noon, Julian texted me that she'd be home late. I responded casually, said I was heading to the gym after work. She didn't know I was sitting at the dining table, logged into the portal, finger hovering over the button that would quietly remove every dime of support she had. But I stopped short of clicking it. Not yet. I wanted her to dig deeper, to make it public enough that everyone knew before I intervened. The truth loses power if revealed too soon. Later that evening, her tweet exploded again. Someone had screenshotted it with her full name visible, captioning it, "When cheating becomes a brand." It was spreading fast, news aggregators, campus gossip pages, even mid-tier influencers discussing it. Her comments section had become a battlefield. That's when I decided it was time. I opened Twitter, logged into my verified account, the one linked to my professional work in software consulting. My profile was clean, factual, nothing emotional. I found her tweet, still there in all its arrogance. Beneath it, I wrote the same 3 words I'd prepared the night before: tag him next time. Within minutes, my phone started vibrating nonstop. Retweets, replies, private messages. People quickly put it together. My followers recognized my name. Her classmates recognized hers. Someone linked our engagement announcement from 6 months ago, and that sealed it. By the next morning, her post had become an online wildfire. Comment sections turned from support to ridicule. People began calling her manipulative, dishonest, selfish. Even feminist pages that initially praised her now distanced themselves. She tried to delete the tweet, but screenshots had already cemented it into digital permanence. When she came home that night, she looked like she'd aged 10 years in a day. Eyes swollen, lipstick smudged, hands shaking as she threw her bag on the counter. She demanded to know if I'd seen what was happening online. I told her yes. She asked if I'd done it. I didn't answer. I didn't have to. The silence told her everything. She kept pacing, ranting about how the internet twisted her words and how she was being bullied for being honest. I listened, nodding occasionally, watching her unravel herself with every excuse. She said Owen had been a mistake, a brief experiment, something she did because she felt trapped. It was almost clinical, the way I observed her desperation. I wasn't looking at the woman I once planned to marry. I was looking at someone who had built her identity on illusions and was now choking on them. When she finally went silent, waiting for me to respond, I stood up, walked to the desk, and opened my laptop. She asked what I was doing. I told her I was working on a withdrawal form. She frowned, probably thinking I meant something emotional. Then she saw the university logo on the screen. Her face drained of color. I didn't say a word. I clicked withdraw sponsorship. A small confirmation window popped up, asking if I wanted to proceed. I pressed yes. The effect was immediate. She lunged toward the desk, trying to close the laptop, but it was too late. The confirmation email pinged my inbox seconds later. Her tuition authorization was officially revoked. Her university account would be frozen within 48 hours. She screamed that I couldn't do that I was ruining her future. I reminded her that she had done that all by herself, publicly, for likes. The next morning, she didn't go to class. Instead, she sat on the couch all day, scrolling through her phone as her world collapsed in real time. News outlets were publishing small articles about the viral post. One of them had used our engagement photo as the header image. I watched her try to fight back online, posting clarifications, blaming misinterpretations, insisting that the relationship had already ended privately. No one believed her. Screenshots of our recent photos contradicted her claims. That night, she accused me of trying to destroy her. I told her destruction requires effort. I was simply removing the support she'd taken for granted. The following day, she packed a bag and said she was going to stay at a friend's place. I didn't stop her. The apartment felt quieter once she left, but not empty. The silence felt earned. Over the next 2 days, I monitored the fallout. Her followers dropped dramatically. The university subreddit filled with speculation about disciplinary actions. A few of her professors unfollowed her publicly. Her internship at a marketing agency posted a vague statement about upholding ethical standards, and insiders confirmed she was let go. Meanwhile, my inbox filled with messages, friends, acquaintances, even strangers offering support. I didn't respond to most of them. The only thing I did was post a simple line on my Twitter. Sometimes silence is the loudest reply. That post alone got more engagement than anything I'd ever written. People began sharing it alongside her scandal, calling it classy revenge. I didn't feel proud, just detached. When Julian finally texted me 3 days later, her message was short. We need to talk. I ignored it. Instead, I opened the bank portal again. Every automated payment she'd ever relied on was gone. Rent, utilities, even her phone plan, transferred fully to her name. The system that once held her up had quietly erased her from its balance sheet. That night, I received one more notification. Her account had gone private, but someone had already archived every tweet. The internet had a way of remembering what people wanted forgotten. As I lay in bed, I thought about how fast everything changed. Just a week earlier, we were talking about honeymoon destinations. Now her name was trending under cheating fiancé scandal. I realized then that there would be no confrontation that could equal what was already happening. The world was handling it for me, tearing down her carefully curated persona faster than I ever could. Still, I wasn't finished. Not yet. There was one final thing I needed to do, something that would ensure her actions carried real-world consequences, not just digital shame. And for that, I'd have to get the university involved directly. By Monday morning, the silence in the apartment was different. Not peaceful, hollow. The kind that follows a storm, but still smells like rain. I could tell Julie hadn't slept. Her phone buzzed every few seconds, the rhythm of her downfall tapping across the table. I didn't need to ask what was happening. The entire internet was answering for her. She hadn't gone back to campus since the blow-up. Her name was everywhere, screenshots, edits, memes. People who once called her inspiring now called her a fraud. Someone had even stitched a TikTok using her tweet, reading it aloud in a mocking tone with violin music playing in the background. Every version of her story was worse than the last, and the truth, whatever version she tried to feed, was already irrelevant. I spent that morning writing a formal letter to her university's dean's office. It was calm, professional, just as any sponsor correspondence should be. I stated that I was revoking financial support due to ethical and reputational concerns. I didn't add any details. I didn't need to. The office was already aware of her viral post. They'd seen the news. The woman on the other end of the call spoke carefully, like she didn't want to confirm too much, but the tone said it all. They'd been discussing disciplinary measures already. That afternoon, I received an email from the bursar confirming that her enrollment was placed on hold. Her account was officially frozen. I sat back in my chair, exhaled once, and let that single line sink in. Financial sponsorship has been fully withdrawn. Julian spent most of that day pacing between rooms. She didn't speak to me directly, but I could hear snippets of her calls. She'd been pleading with her advisor, her parents, and someone else, probably Owen. Each conversation sounded more desperate. She kept using words like misunderstood, context, temporary break. The world outside didn't care. Context dies fast online. By evening, her internship had emailed her. I saw it pop up on her laptop while she was in the kitchen. The subject line read, "Termination of placement effective immediately." They referenced public behavior inconsistent with company values. It was all legal phrasing, no emotion, just a clean severing. I didn't gloat. There was no satisfaction in watching it happen, just a quiet confirmation that actions eventually demand their cost. She came into the living room around sunset, mascara faint under her eyes, holding her phone like a weapon she didn't know how to fire. She started speaking fast, words tumbling over each other about how it wasn't supposed to get this bad. She said Owen had told her it would blow over, that people online would forget in a week. I stayed quiet. The silence made her talk faster, as if she could fill it with excuses. She said she'd only written that tweet out of anger, that she didn't expect it to spread. Then she tried to twist it, saying she was trying to start a conversation about fidelity and freedom. I looked at her and realized she was still performing. Even now, when her career, education, and reputation were collapsing, she couldn't admit to the simple truth. She had gambled our life for validation. That night she left again, saying she needed air. She didn't come home until late morning. When she walked in, her face told me everything before she spoke. The university had called her directly. She was suspended pending review of conduct unbecoming of a student representative. Apparently, the faculty had found out that Owen, the teaching assistant, had been involved. That made it worse. A breach of professional boundaries. He was being investigated too. She sank onto the couch, holding her head in her hands, mumbling that this wasn't fair, that everyone made mistakes. I agreed silently. Everyone does. But not everyone broadcasts them as trophies. A few days later, the story shifted again. A small digital magazine published a piece titled "The Feminist Who Fell from Grace." It mentioned her by name, describing her as a student who weaponized empowerment for attention. The comments were brutal. Some mocked her, others pitted her, but no one defended her anymore. She tried fighting back. She recorded a shaky video statement on her phone, talking about mental health, growth, self-acceptance, but it only made things worse. Viewers dissected her every blink, every pause, calling it manipulative. The clip spread faster than the original tweet. Meanwhile, my own reputation, somehow, benefited. I hadn't spoken publicly except for that single reply, but people filled in the blanks themselves. My firm received emails from strangers calling me a class act. Clients reached out to express support. Ironically, the same algorithm that destroyed her decided I was the reasonable one. But I wasn't done. Silence had worked better than any shouting could, but I wanted finality. Something that didn't just end the relationship, but stripped away the pedestal she'd built for herself. I created a simple post on LinkedIn. Nothing dramatic. Just a photo of my desk, a cup of coffee beside a stack of closed folders. The caption read, "Sponsoring someone's education is a privilege, not an obligation. Lessons are sometimes expensive, but worth the investment." It went viral within hours. Thousands of reactions, hundreds of comments calling it mature and wise. No names mentioned, but everyone knew. Even corporate accounts chimed in with platitudes about boundaries and self-respect. Julian saw it. I could tell because, for the first time in days, she approached me without anger. She looked exhausted, hollowed out by public opinion. She said she wanted to fix things, to explain, to make amends privately if I could help her rebuild. I told her there was nothing left to rebuild. Everything she had was borrowed. From me, from reputation, from luck. And luck had finally run out. A week later, I received a letter confirming that her suspension had turned into formal expulsion. Owen's contract at the university was terminated as well. The faculty cited academic misconduct in his record. She had lost everything she thought made her untouchable. Her parents showed up at my door that evening, pretending they didn't know the details. They asked if there was a way I could help her finish her studies. I gave them copies of the transactions, the tweets, the formal withdrawal forms. Her father read them silently, folded the papers, and said they'd handle it from there. They didn't stay long. I never saw them again. Julianne moved out 2 days later. She took only clothes and a few books, leaving behind everything else: furniture, electronics, reminders of the life I'd built for her. She said she might go stay with relatives out of state. I didn't ask where. The night after she left, I checked Twitter one last time. Her account was gone, deleted completely. The internet had already moved on to new scandals, new hashtags, new faces. I closed my laptop and realized that while her world had burned publicly, mine had simply cleared. No more noise, no more explaining. Just quiet accountability. But even then, I knew this wasn't the end. She wasn't the type to vanish quietly, and I had a feeling that the next time I'd hear from her, it wouldn't be through social media. It would be through something far more desperate. For almost a month, I heard nothing. No messages, no emails, not even whispers from mutual friends. The silence was sharp but satisfying, like the clean edge of something that finally healed. I'd gone back to work, taken on new clients, and even started sleeping through the night again. Then, one afternoon, a letter arrived. Thick envelope. Law firm's name embossed on the top. I already knew what it was before opening it. Her retaliation. Inside was a claim notice: emotional distress, defamation, financial coercion. She accused me of deliberately humiliating her publicly and withholding agreed funds. According to her, she had suffered mental health consequences and career damage as a direct result of my online actions. I almost laughed. The gall it took to turn betrayal into victimhood was impressive in its own twisted logic. But I didn't get angry. I just forwarded the letter to my attorney, a quiet woman named Camille who handled corporate disputes for my firm. After reading it, Camille called me. Her first words were calm and dry. She has no case. In fact, she might owe you money. We met the next day. Camille spread every document I'd kept on the conference table: tuition records, PayPal transactions, her viral tweets, even her interviews, trying to spin the story as empowerment. Each page fit perfectly into the timeline. Every claim she'd made was countered by evidence she'd created herself. Camille smiled faintly and said, "We'll file a response and a counterclaim for defamation and unauthorized use of funds. You'll likely recover part of the tuition." It wasn't about money anymore, but I nodded anyway. A week later, Julianne showed up in court. She looked unrecognizable, hair cut short, pale, eyes darting like someone expecting applause that never came. Owen wasn't with her. Word had it he'd fled to Europe after being dismissed, trying to start over under a new name. The hearing was short. Her lawyer tried to frame her post as private expression not intended to identify the plaintiff. My attorney presented archived screenshots showing her public comments linking the confession to our relationship and city. Then came the financial records, my sponsorship listed under official contracts, not shared accounts. Each transaction bore my signature, every payment voluntary, and every remaining one legally revocable. Then Camille dropped the final piece: a set of PayPal receipts proving she'd used my funds without consent for personal trips, albums with Owen's initials in the notes. Unauthorized use of financial resources. It wasn't theft in the criminal sense, but it destroyed her moral argument completely. The judge was patient but firm. After reviewing the evidence, he dismissed her case in under 20 minutes. His closing remark was almost surgical: "You cannot defame yourself and claim to be defamed by consequence." Julianne froze. Her lawyer looked defeated. Camille handed me a copy of the dismissal order with a quiet nod. The ruling also approved a partial restitution of the tuition payments, over $8,000 to be returned to me in structured installments. Realistically, I doubted she'd ever pay it. But the principle mattered. Outside the courtroom, she tried to speak to me. I kept walking. She followed, saying she wanted to explain that she'd lost everything: her degree, job, apartment, friends, that the internet had destroyed her beyond repair. I turned to her once and said the only truth that still mattered: the internet didn't destroy you. You built this yourself. Her expression flickered between fury and disbelief, as if I'd missed some deeper justification. But there was nothing left to justify. After that day, she disappeared again. Months passed. I heard bits and pieces through acquaintances. She'd moved back with her parents in another state. They'd demanded repayment for the money they'd loaned her during school and cut her off when she couldn't provide it. Someone mentioned she worked at a local retail store under a different name. Others said she'd tried to start a blog about rebuilding after public shame, but it never gained traction. Meanwhile, I found something better to do with the remains of what she'd taken. With Camille's help, I established a small education fund. Nothing extravagant, just enough to sponsor scholarships for underprivileged women pursuing tech degrees. It was ironic, but also poetic. Every dollar that once paid for Julianne's betrayal would now fund someone else's opportunity. When the scholarship launched, a local paper picked up the story. They described it as a quiet act of integrity from a man once caught in viral chaos. They never used my name directly, but readers connected the dots. The comments were overwhelmingly positive. I didn't read them all. I didn't need to. It wasn't revenge anymore. It was closure disguised as progress. Then one night, months later, long after I'd stopped checking social media, an email came through my public contact form. The subject line was blank. The sender was unfamiliar, but the writing style was instantly recognizable. She wrote that she'd seen the scholarship post, said she was proud of me for turning pain into purpose. She asked if I'd ever considered forgiving her. I read it twice, then closed the message without replying. Forgiveness isn't an email exchange. It's a quiet absence, the moment you stop caring enough to answer. I deleted the message, emptied the trash folder, and shut down my laptop. That night, I walked through the apartment. The same rooms where she once laughed, studied, planned our future. They looked smaller now, but lighter. The air didn't carry her perfume anymore, only the faint scent of coffee and dust. I sat by the window, watching the city lights blink in the distance. Somewhere out there, Julianne was probably scrolling through timelines she could no longer control. The world had moved on. She hadn't. I thought about how easy it is to mistake public attention for power. She'd believed her confession gave her control over narrative, perception, consequence. But real control isn't about who speaks the loudest. It's about who still stands when the noise fades. In the end, the tweet that ruined her wasn't a confession. It was a mirror. One she built herself and smashed the moment it reflected back what she really was. The next morning, I sent Camille the final transfer for the scholarship endowment and archived every remaining file related to Julianne. Every screenshot, every record, every trace. Gone. Not erased, just irrelevant. By the time the sun came up, the city outside had shifted into a new day. The world kept moving, and I was finally part of it again. Not as the fiancé she betrayed, not as the man she humiliated online, but simply as someone free.